Welcome back to the poker vlog. This is episode number 170, and for this one, we're playing a little bit higher stakes than normal. We're playing 1020 with a $20 big blind ante at Bellagio, so it's up in the high stakes area in that room. Hope you guys enjoy it. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons. A lot of you guys still aren't subscribed, so I'd appreciate it if you would subscribe. Helps out the channel. All right, let's go ahead and get started. We're on the Strip in Las Vegas, and it's an absolute madhouse. We arrive at Bellagio to play high stakes. The poker room here is packed. The reason everyone's out is because it's fight night. The main event is Poirier versus McGregor. I'm about to have my own battle with a lot on the line. I buy into 1020 for 5,000. Usually when there are big events going on in town, games tend to be better. I'm not disappointed at all today. I make my way up to the high stakes area. I take my seat, and I'm amazed at the lineup. It's about the softest 1020 game that I've seen here. I played with some of these guys before, but a few players I've never seen, which is a good thing because they're probably tourists that aren't pros. The very first hand, I'm in the big blind with 8 deuce offsuit. There's also a $20 big blind ante in this game, so I put 40 in the middle before I was dealt cards. Onto the gun plus 1 limps in. There's a great sign of a good game. Usually there's no limping in tough lineups. Middle position player limps in, also good. The button calls, the small blind calls. I check. We're going 5 ways to the flop in a limped pot. The dealer puts out 8-8-5 with 2 diamonds. Once again, this is my very first hand of the session, and I made trips. The small blind checks. I don't want this to check around. I fast play it and bet 60. Under the gun plus 1 folds. The middle position player calls. He could be on some kind of draw. The button pauses and looks as if he's contemplating a raise that he just calls. I'm somewhat concerned that he could have trips or better. The small blind folds. It's down to the 3 of us. The turn is the jack of clubs. None of the draws get there. Checking seems reasonable since I got called in 2 spots. It's kind of scary. I don't want to give players a free card in case they have draws though. I bet 160. The middle position player reaches for chips quickly and is happy to call. I really think that I have him beat. The button chooses this as the time to put in a raise. He makes it 560. I get the sense that he has me beat, but it's difficult to fold trips right now. Maybe he has pocket 5s and I can still make a better boat, or maybe this is some kind of semi-bluff. If that's the case, then folding trips would be a disaster. I call for 400 more. The middle position player isn't sure that he wants to call this amount. If the best hand he can make is a flush or a straight, then he could be drawing dead. Ultimately, he puts in another 400. He could have something like Jack 10 of diamonds, and we'll have full house outs. The river is another 5. I take a play out of Noah's book, and I make a boat. I'm concerned that every worse hand is going to check behind me if I check. I don't think either opponent will take a stab as a bluff given how this has been played. For that reason, I take the initiative, and I bet 1,200. The middle position player doesn't like his hand anymore. He furthers my suspicion that he was on a draw. He folds. There's a good chance that I'm chopping with the button. I definitely don't want to see a raise from him. He just calls. I might have him beat. I turn over my cards. We don't have the winner. At least not outright. The button shows Queen 8 offsuit. We luckily got bailed out on the river to make a small profit since we chopped the middle position player's money.
It's my first hand.
We kick things off with a pot of over $4,000. Next I'm in the small blind with Ace King offsuit. Under the gun plus 1 opens at 60. Middle position player calls. I'm not going to flatten play this out of position. I 3-bet to 300. I'd be fine taking this down pre-flop since I don't even have a pair yet. Instead, under the gun plus 1 wants to go to battle. He calls. The middle position player folds. We're heads up. The flop comes Ace Queen 3 rainbow. We have top. It's difficult to get paid from hands that are much worse, and I could be up against Ace Queen or Queen still. I check for deception to hopefully induce a bluff from much worse hands, and partly for pot control in case I'm behind. Under the gun plus 1 is looking confident. He bets 400. I'm not worried about it since my hand is intentionally under-repped. I call. We get a great card from the dealer. The turn is the ace of spades. We've made trips. I check. Under the gun plus 1 isn't feeling as good about his hand anymore. He checks back. There's almost no doubt in my mind that I'm best. My opponent is probably very weak. There's some chance that he has a worse ace though. The river is a 6, it's a complete brick. I don't want this to check through again. I bet 1,300 to target hands like Ace Jack, Ace 10, or maybe even a worse suited ace that decided to call my 3-bet in position pre-flop. My line should look a little odd since I check called flop, and now I'm betting on the large side. Perhaps I can get called even lighter since this looks strange. Without too much thought, the opponent folds. His name's Billy. He'd later tell me that he had Jack 10 of spades, King on the river one time, could have been a fun one. It's a good start. We're up over 1,100 on the day. Some people are away from the table. It's 6-handed when we're dealt pocket 3s under the gun. I raised to 60. The button calls. He's a rec player who doesn't like to fold at all. I recently saw him call a pre-flop raised and then multiple streets, including a large river bet with Queen 5 suited. He won the pot, but he only had a pair of queens and a bad kicker. We're heads up out of position. The flop is ace-9-3 rainbow. We drill a set with the best opponent at the table to do so against. If he has an ace, I should be able to extract a lot of money from his hand. For that reason, I'm not slow playing. I bet 60. With zero hesitation, the button calls. We appear to have him hooked. He doesn't look like he's going to be folding. The turn is the 7 of spades. There were no reasonable draws on the board, so I expect to be up against hands that can call large amounts going forward. I bump it up and bet 180. Again, very little time goes by before the opponent gets his calling chips in the middle. My plan is to bet big on the river. The dealer puts out the deuce of hearts. The opponent's light calls with queen 5 in a previous hand are still in the back of my mind. That, coupled with this being an ace-high board and people especially not liking to fold pairs of aces, sets this up perfectly for me to go for the home run. I overbet pot, making it 700. Maybe the button will have 2 pair and can call easily. Maybe he'll think that I'm just trying to bluff him out of the pot and will try to keep me honest. This isn't an easy decision for him. He's in the tank. Perhaps I got too greedy. He lays it down. I probably could have made a few hundred more had I bet less. It's still a win, and we're about to play another fun one with him. I straddled under the gun for 40, and I have 10-8 suited. Under the gun +1 opens to 140. The cutoff, who was the opponent from the last hand, calls. He likes doing that. I defend my straddle for 100 more. We're going 3 ways to the flop out of position. It's Jack-9 deuce with 2 spades and 1 club. We flop an open-ender and a backdoor flush draw. I check. The pre-flop raiser checks. Our boy in the cutoff bets 280. Drawing to straights when there are flush draws out there from out of position is typically not a great idea, particularly when only one side will make the nuts and there's an additional player behind. Since the pre-flop raiser checked, he probably won't have anything, and I at least have the backdoor flush draw. I consider putting in a check raise. A big part of me wants to do it. I know the cutoff doesn't like folding much though. I call one time to see if I can improve. Under the gun +1 folds immediately. It's heads up. The turn is the 3 of clubs. We pick up the flush draw. I check. This is when things really start to get interesting. Rather than check back, the opponent bets 400. It's a very small sizing considering all the draws that are out there. I suspect that he didn't know what to do. He put out a bet with a weak 1 pair hand. It's almost as if he's betting to see where he's at. This is a small enough sizing that I can reasonably call to see if I can hit one of my outs on the river. I take a more aggressive approach and nudge him in the direction of folding if my read is correct that he wants to see where he's at. I put in the check raise to 1400. My line makes very little sense, and I'd never try it against someone who I thought was a top-level player. I supposed I could have jacks and play it the same way, but I'd mostly check raise the flop with my strong hands. There's an immediate look of dismay from the button, followed by a lot of sighing and shaking his head. He realizes that he shouldn't have bet that amount, and maybe shouldn't have bet at all. The opponent folds. We capitalize on the situation by getting a huge bluff through. Things couldn't be going much better than this. We're up over 2,000 already. The game has basically become 10-20-40. Everyone's straddling. I'm under the gun in the straddle with King-9 of hearts. The hijack is a newer player. He opens to 120. The small blind calls. My hand is too strong to fold. I call for 80 more. 3 of us are seeing the flop. We haven't done this in a little while, but if you want to see us flop a huge hand, it'll take some extra run good. Run good is generated from you guys hitting the like button, so that's what I'll need you to do on the count of 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Jack 10-4 with 3 hearts is what the dealer puts out. We've got the second nuts with a straight flush redraw and 2 opponents in a straddle hand that was raised. Oh yeah. The small blind checks. I check to the pre-flop raiser. He doesn't seem to like the flop much. He checks back. I doubt he'd do that with anything better than 1 pair. The turn is another 4. We're slightly downgraded, but no big deal. The small blind checks. There's absolutely no reason to think that we don't have the best hand. I want to get this pot pumped up. I bet 280. The hijack doesn't quite believe that I'm as strong as I am. He calls. Small blind folds. I'm not 100% sure what to put the hijack on. I don't want to see the board pair again though. The river is the ace of clubs. I'm kind of concerned that I could somehow be up against aces or another full house of some sort. I would have much rather seen a card like the 6 of spades come out on the river, but it's a bit ridiculous to be too worried about monsters under the bed. The ace could actually be a great card if the opponent has king-queen offsuit with the queen of hearts or ace-jack. He called a fairly large bet on the turn. Maybe he can call another one here. It's difficult to have a hand as strong as I do. I want to get paid a lot of money when I flop king-high flushes. I just bet big as a bluff. Now I bet 800 as a big bet for value. The player double checks his cards. This is usually never a good sign on the river, especially when it's followed by a shove. That's what this player does. He tanks for a while, then rips it in for 26-30 total. This is not a spot I want to be in. He probably would have bet the flop with a set of jacks or 10s. He could have slow played the ace-high flush, but he's repping more of a full house with a jam over my big river bet. Does he just have aces? There's only 3 combinations of that. I still think that he would have bet aces on the flop most of the time. Maybe he could have ace-4 suited too, but there's only 2 combinations of that possible. Does he somehow have another offsuit hand with the ace of hearts that he's decided to turn into a bluff? People rarely bluff rivers for large amounts in smaller games. They get more creative in big games like this one, but I don't know if this guy is the type to do so. It's 18-30 more for me to call. I don't love it, but I can't get away.
Basic call.
Ace-4. Flush.
What's the total?
1, 2,
27, 30.
26, 30.
The player has ace-4 diamonds, which connected quite well with the cards that you see best on the board there. I should have been able to make the fold. I don't see how checking river would have been best, but certainly betting smaller or bet folding makes sense. I get punished for the maximum in a $6,200 pot by a runner full house. I'm no longer winning on the day. I'm stuck at 1,000. I've got to try and shake it off. I pick up ace-jack offsuit on the button. I open to 120. The big blind calls. He's a viewer named Alex. The under-the-gun straddler calls. We're going 3 ways to the flop in position. It's queen 8-7 rainbow. We all check. The turn is the 9 of clubs. We all check again. The river is the 10 of hearts. We make a straight. The big blind bets 240, representing at least a jack and possibly king jack for the nuts. Under the gun folds. I call. Guess what? We have a similar result as the last hand that we went over when we have a strong hand that we make a river call with. And the opponent has ace-4 of diamonds. Oh, you thought we lost again. Nope. We have the winner and scoop the pot after someone was trying to get some Bradley dollars.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah. You want to be on there?
Yeah.
All right.
What's your name, dude?
Shout out Davis. Alex. My name's Alex.
Shout out to Davis, though?
Shout out to Davis Herman.
All right.
Tell him I shout him out.
I'm going to mute that.
I obviously didn't mute the shout out. I have to be able to mess with people a little bit. Alex had a great reaction though. It was as if when I told him that I was going to mute the clip, I muted him in real life. I saw his lips moving, but no words came out. Let's watch again so you guys know what I'm referring to.
I'm going to mute that.
That's wild. I hope Alex is able to regain his voice and that I didn't accidentally put some kind of Little Mermaid spell on him or something. You know what else is wild? Legendary poker commentator Vince Van Patten takes a seat at the table to play with us.
Yeah, about to start playing with you, and your reputation is very strong, so I hope I don't go broke.
I don't think he's in any danger of going broke. We get involved in a hand with him here. We have ace-6 of diamonds in the hijack. We're playing 6-handed, and the straddle's no longer on. Vince limps in from under the gun. I raise to 80 in order to isolate him. Cutoff calls. Vince calls. We're going 3 ways to the flop. It's ace-king-10 with 2 hearts and 1 diamond. We have top pair and a backdoor flush draw. The board's very wet. Vince checks. I don't want to give anyone a free card. I bet 180. Ideally, the opponent behind me will fold. He can have lots of combos that are ahead of me, including the nuts. Unfortunately, he calls. Vince folds. It's now heads up and we're out of position. The turn is the 9 of diamonds. I really don't know if I have the best hand or not. I know that I have a lot of equity since I turned to flush draw. I don't want to bet and get raised. I check. The cutoff isn't checking back. He bets 360. I call. Let's hit a diamond one time. Nope. The river is the 10 of hearts. The heart flush draw gets there, but if I was up against ace-queen, ace-jack, or even ace-9, I'm chopping with all of those. I check. The cutoff is thinking about firing. Eventually, he checks back. I flip my cards over, imagining that at least some of the chips will be coming back to me. None are. My opponent surprisingly has ace-king suited. He didn't 3-bet me, and he flopped top 2 pair.
No 3-bet, huh, Derek?
The session's coming to an end as we pick up queen 10 offsuit on the button. Under the gun +1 opens a 60. He seems like a competent player, but what's interesting about him is that when he was setting his chips down on the table to enter the game, he saw we were all straddling for $40 under the gun, and he picked up to leave because he didn't want to play a game that was 10, 20, 40. That's a big tell that he's not comfortable playing for larger amounts. Having that information, it makes me want to stretch out my range a little wider than normal. I call the 60 knowing that I'll be in position on the pre-flop aggressor, and I can put him in some tough spots. The big blind also calls. 3 of us are in the mix. The dealer puts out queen 5-3 with 2 diamonds. We have top pair. The big blind checks. Under the gun +1 checks. Okay, I probably have the best hand. I bet 120 for value. The big blind folds. Under the gun +1, check raises to 400. I don't get the sense at all that he has a very strong hand. Maybe he's turning ace-jack or a king-jack of hearts type of hand into a bluff and is trying to get me to fold something like 8s or 9s. I have the queen, so there's only one combination for a set of queens that he could have. And I don't think that someone who's concerned about playing this big will necessarily be opening from early position with 5s or 3s. I call for 280 more. We're heads up. The turn is the deuce of hearts. Under the gun +1, slows down and checks. This makes me even more suspicious that he has a hand with little or no showdown value. If he happens to be strong, I don't want to bet, and if he's weak, then I'll just get the showdown cheaply from here for the win. I check back. The river is the ace of spades. This is a terrible card because if he bluff raised with some kind of strange ace high hand, he now has the winner. It looks like he did connect with the ace because he puts out a blocker bet of 540. This feels very similar to the type of bet that I faced earlier when I turned my 10-8 of clubs into a bluff. This guy probably doesn't know where he's at, and he seems afraid. He has 2,000 behind, and I already know from the moment he sat down that he doesn't want to play big pots. There's no way that he'll have ace-4 after checking the turn on a wet board. I don't want to call with my relatively weak queen. Instead, I bring his biggest fear to reality. Just seconds after announcing I'm all in, the player lets his cards go. We use all the information that we've gathered since before the opponent even got dealt a hand, and we use it against him to steal a big pot before racking up. That was a strange one. Got bailed out big time that first hand with the 8 deuce, and then ran really well, and then lost a $6,000 pot with the second nut flush, flopped it. So if someone told me before I started the session that I was gonna lose a $6,000 pot and only lose $530, I feel pretty good. So that's what happened. Played for, let's see, I think somewhere around 3 hours and 45 minutes or something. Game was great, and I was running good. My bluffs all got through. Pretty crazy one there at the end with the queen 10 offsuit. I shouldn't have even been in that hand in the first place, but felt like playing, which is the last words of a lot of bad hand histories, or maybe that's the first couple words of a lot of bad hand histories. Anyway, pretty happy to get out of there, only losing $500. Yeah, I probably could have folded that king 9 of hearts hand. Actually, I'm just bad at folding. Bad at folding big hands, and I don't think that he's bluffing there really ever. So I could have saved myself like $1,800 on the river, maybe even more. I could have probably bet smaller on the river and still bet folded. So that was unfortunate, but if you take that hand out, I win a ton of money. That's it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, I'd appreciate it if you hit the like and subscribe buttons. Helps out the channel quite a bit. And be sure to hit the notification bell so that you're notified every time I put out a new video. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to let me know in the comment section, and I'm happy to get back to you. This was a fun session. I didn't win, but made some big hands early on, got some huge bluffs through. So these are my favorite stakes to play. It's just a lot of fun. Playing bigger, and I'm getting more and more comfortable. A couple meetup games coming up. We're going to Houston August 7th and 8th. So we're going to the Texas Card House there, and then we're going to the Texas Card House in Austin August 11th and 12th. And then we're gonna start doing some meetup games at the Hustler in the Los Angeles area. That'll be in September. We don't have any dates set, but I'm looking forward to that. So both Andrew and I will be going to all those stops. I'll have some more information probably in future episodes. All right, guys, hope you're doing well. Stay safe. Good luck at the tables, and I'll see you next time.